The first thing I do is before I go into my articles, is I review what I'm looking for. So I review my outline so that I understand what it is I'm looking for, my questions. I've labeled background information. I've got my questions and letters so that I can code things. I'm a very messy researcher. I will tell you this now, if you haven't noticed. I also number my sources. I notice that essay is 1 on all these, so I make sure that I have the same number and I number all of my resources so that I know which one goes where and which one I'm looking at. Makes it easy for me to code. So I've got my questions, what I'm looking for. Then as I research, I'm not going to read everything. I'm not going to highlight everything. One of the biggest concerns I ever see when I was in college or in my speech and debate and everything else that I've done with my students over the years is they get an article, they get a book, they get their textbook, their biology textbooks from college, and they're studying and they're highlighting everything. And I'm like, why are you highlighting everything? He said, so I can study later. I said, you might as well just read the whole thing again, because you're just highlighting everything. And that does no good. You want to look for the relevant information, the big ideas, the main words, the main things that are going to help you. So looking at the essential questions, that's why in tests they say you read the answers and the questions first before you read the text, so you know what you're looking for. It makes it easier. Same thing here. So I know that I'm looking for this information. I've numbered this one. This is my 7th source. And I'm only highlighting the information I'm reading through. And one of my questions, my background was, who was he? Well, right here it says, he was a gloomy English economist who argued 2 centuries ago that population increases exponentially. Great. So I know a little bit about him. So I know that this was my background. And I'm going to make this quote number 1. Then I go over to my lovely outline here. And who was he? Question. I go to source 7 and quote number 1. And then when I go back later, I don't have to write this all out. I can have it all on my paper. I go to write my rough draft and stuff, and I can just know where to go to get my quote, know where to go to get my information. And I don't have to look for all of it. The other thing is brackets are nice, and writing comments. And as you're reading, sometimes you'll start getting ideas and you'll start writing ideas and things. Do it. If you get ideas, write them down where you have it, next to what you have it with, responding to it, making comments. Then later when you go to write your paper, you don't go, oh, I had that really cool comment, what was it? I had this really good idea. Guess what? It's here. And mark that also in your outline. Comment number 1 or comment number 2, or label it or mark it in there somehow. Put it together for yourself. Then I didn't use half my information. I find what I am going to use and I leave the rest blank. You can have a source where you only use 1 or 2 things in your paper. You don't have to use everything in that source. Even if you just read the source and you don't use anything but it gives you information to go from, that's still a source. Even if you use nothing from it as a quote or a paraphrase, you still gleaned information from it, so use it as a source. I liked this whole area. It gave me some, and I was able to make a comment about it that I'm going to use. So I labeled it which section it goes to. It goes into my outline under C, number 1, and it's quote number 3. And there I've got it put right there, C, number 1, 3, answers right there. Okay, there's different ways. You might want a color code. You could have a color code for each of your sections and your highlighters, and then highlight with those things and then mark in. However works for you. I am extremely disorganized to other people when it comes to research. This is about as organized as I get, where I label and have things here. In my notebooks, I'd be starting to write my papers as teachers are teaching, and I have arrows and things going everywhere and comments. I mean, I'll sit out on a living room couch with all my evidence, all 20 pages or whatever articles around me, all numbered and labeled, and I just sit there and start writing, and I just grab as I need to, and then put them back and throw it. My mother hated it. My mother's very, very logistic. She's very, and if that's okay too. However works best for you. By Monday, though, What I'd like you guys to have are your sources, all of your sources as much as possible. If you're still doing an interview or something like that, those may be in process. But I'd like you to have all your sources. And I'd like you to have your outline either filled in with the quotes or done this messy way with, labels and codes, however works best for you. But by Monday, have read through your sources, annotated, highlighted, get the information that you need. Okay. Notice I am not highlighting everything or underlining everything. I'm skipping big, huge sections. I've got comments. I've got just underlined places with more comments. This will help you in college for studying, because then when you go back through a textbook or a source to study for a test, you're not rereading everything. You're going to these main points that you know are what you're trying to get at. When you go to study for a test, you know what the main things are, you go to those things, and that's all you study, that's all you review, and it triggers your memory for the rest of the information. Okay? So, any questions about what you need to do with your sources? Okay, I'm going to give you the remaining amount of time today and a little bit of time tomorrow probably to work on annotating in class. You can ask questions, get information if you need to. So, I should see you working. If, however, I do not see you working,